Hello, Dr. Uche's book club friends. I'm back again. Dr. Uche here, your Dr. Booktuber. Today I will be reviewing yet another book that I just read. So before I dig in, I hope you all are doing well, and do go ahead and hit subscribe so that when I upload my new videos, you will know. And I always love to hear from you. Feel free to comment, let me know what you're reading, let me know what you think of the book review. And I definitely love to know your thoughts, and also love to know what you're reading to inspire me on my reading journey. So today I am talking about a book by Nadia Hashimi, When the Moon is Low. When the Moon is Low by Nadia Hashimi. I love reading her books. This is her second, I believe the second of her books that I'm reviewing on this channel. And I so much enjoy reading her work because it takes me to a world I am not familiar with. It teaches me a little bit of history. And at the same time, it helps me to see a certain other aspect, particularly of Afghanistan, which is where a lot of her books are based. In this book, When the Moon is Low, we follow the journey of a young girl called Fireba. So it kind of starts off with Fireba. The beginning of her life was not a very pleasant one. Basically, her mother, who was very much loved by her husband, died giving birth to her. And as you can imagine, that's just not a very nice way for anybody to start. So this is what happened to Fireba. I believe she had an elder brother born before her. I hope I'm saying it right. Yes, had to be an older brother because her mother died giving birth to her. So had an older brother, and because they were quite young at the time when her mother passed, sadly giving birth to Fireba, the husband, not surprisingly, came under some pressure to marry again, and he did. He married a woman. And a lot of the names, because most of the time I listen to my books on audio while I'm going about my errands. I don't often have the time to sit and look at the book, so the names, the words that are pronounced by the narrator, I can't always quite recognize how they might have been spelt, especially if it's a culture outside of mine. So, he talked about, so excuse me for not saying some names, I don't want to say it incorrectly, but he talks about this stepmother. Kokago is how it's pronounced, but again, I may be doing it wrong. I didn't see the writing. So that's the stepmother. She comes into the home. She is tasked with taking care of these little children whose mother died, quite sadly. So there's a toddler and there's a newborn. And she starts taking care of them. And she has her own children. I believe she has 3 or 4 daughters. And so this young girl, Fireba, grows up the eldest in a family of all girls, aside from her brother, her own brother from the same mother. And, she has to fight her way through life. She lives in this community where a good number of people are superstitious. So the fact that her mother dies giving birth to her is frowned upon. And this innocent child has this whole burden on her that you killed your mother kind of thing. And people look at her in a very unpleasant, unfriendly way, that she's cursed and whatnot. So she has to deal with this as a very young child. And this stepmother comes in, and you can tell she's trying to take care of them, but there's a bit of a distance. So Fireba doesn't totally embrace her, and she doesn't totally embrace Fireba either. And Fireba being a girl, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes women are more emotional and more perceptive in that manner. She knows there is some distance. So when the stepsisters or the half-sisters are being born, these are children to this woman. So she deals with them in a different sort of way. And this young girl, Fireba, she knows, she can feel it, that she's treated differently. So these girls go to school early. She is kept at home, supposedly to help the stepmother with the younger children. Now the younger children, one by one, go off to school, and she's still at home, cooking and cleaning and wiping up after everybody. And her father, who is trying to raise a family, goes to work. He's not as attentive. He doesn't know the little detail. His wife is at home, supposedly watching the little things. And so he's a little displaced from these children from the first wife, this daughter from the first wife. So she has to plead to her father, convince him to let her go to school. She is at that point, I believe, about 7 years behind. I think, if I'm not mistaken, she's almost 12, and I'd like to think they go to school at 5 or so. So she's about 7 years behind. But she's determined, and she convinces her dad to send her to school. And she goes to school and she works so hard that she is promoted year from class to class to class, and she catches up in just a few years. She catches up with her age mates. Quite a feat. I was applauding for this young girl the whole way. So, but hey, that's not the end of her life journey or the end of her life struggle. She somehow gets to know or to start talking to a boy next door. So it's a very conservative society where girls keep to themselves, boys keep to themselves. It's very family oriented. It's so much about family honor and pride and that sort of thing. But her father has an orchard, and she likes going there when she wants quiet time. And so the neighbor has a son. And somehow she starts noticing there's a boy in the house, just across the behind the fence. And eventually they start talking. They don't see each other, right? There's a fence between them, but somehow they're exchanging words back and forth, and they start becoming quite friendly. And this boy then starts to insinuate later on, turns out he's an engineer or he's studying engineering or something, starts to say, I think our family should start talking to each other, starts to, tell her all these sweet nothings and so on. And to the effect, I actually want to marry you and our family should start talking. I think we should start discussing it. Only for his mother to connive with the stepmother, and instead of Fareba, her half-sister, Najiba, I believe is the name, becomes the bride. So somehow they convince the stepmother that poor little Fareba is not the best to marry because she killed her mother. Her mother died giving birth to her. Such a huge burden to put on the plate of an innocent child, as painful as the whole situation is, obviously. So this boy from across behind the fence ends up marrying the stepsister. She's devastated. Fareba's devastated. But little did she know there was much joy in the future for her, because the cousin to this new husband ends up coming to marry her. So it just so happens the mother to the boy across behind the fence has a sister. And so this sister has a son. And so in effect, these young men are cousins. So the cousin ends up marrying Fareba. His name is Mahmoud. And they grow to love each other. They actually have a very supportive family. The mother-in-law turns out to be a lovely, lovely, supportive woman. She describes her as the first mother she ever had. And it took a while. They had some infertility challenges first, initially, but she ends up having children. She has Salim, and she has Samira, and she has Aziz. So boy, girl, boy. Now, there was much sadness to come, because this is around the time when the Taliban takes over Afghanistan. This is how she describes it. And there's a lot of change in society. Even before that, she describes Soviet warfare in the area and violence. So these little children are growing up with a lot of violence around them. And then the Taliban takes over and the culture changes, the expectations, how people must conduct themselves and what they must wear and that sort of thing. And this is what she describes in the book. And so things get really rough. You know, Mahmoud, you don't get the sense he's on the side of the Taliban. He's trying to do what he was doing before as a water engineer. And he gets captured in the middle of the night. Some people barge into his home and take him. And his family never sees him again. Turns out his body was found. So he was effectively executed, murdered. So this family, they go from pretty stable home one day to the next day, nothing. The breadwinner is gone. Now, mind you, Fereba became a teacher, but with the new principles in society, she was no longer able to teach. So she's staying at home with her children. Her girl could not go to school anymore. And she was pregnant with Aziz at the time. So the husband actually died. I believe he never saw the third born. So they have to find a way. And the son, Salim, mind you, he was maybe 14 or so, or not quite 15. He has to start to earn a living. And so basically, not to make this too long, but he starts to do a lot to fend for his family, to earn money. And it's not always easy money. It's very hard. He worked so hard for so little pay. The family decides they're not safe in Afghanistan and they must leave. But oh my goodness, what it took for them to leave. To go from country to country. They're trying to get to England. Now, mind you, Najiba, the half-sister of Fereba, her other half-sisters, and that stepmother made their way to England. When things started changing, when the Taliban came in, they were one of the first ones to leave. So Fereba stays behind, and now she's trying to leave with her family at a time when it's so difficult to get out of the country, to get papers. Everything is hush-hush. You must do everything secretly. And her husband has been murdered, right? So she's trying to do it as a single mother with fairly young teenage and younger children. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe they go from Afghanistan to Iraq, or was it Iran? And then they go to Turkey, and relying on the kindness of strangers, right? To find places to sleep, at times sleeping in the rain, and all sorts of things. And from Turkey to Greece. Now, they get to Greece, and somehow, while Salim is walking around trying to earn money, he gets caught. He gets caught by security services, and he gets deported back to Turkey, I believe, while his family is looking around for him. Okay, now this goes from bad to worse, right? Because this young man is who the mother relies on, right? And now even he is not there. So she has to figure out what to do with the daughter, who, mind you, has gone mute from the stress of what happened to her father. She's gone mute, and she couldn't be that young. She's old enough to do a few things. I would guess around 12 or so, but she's gone mute. She stopped speaking. And they have also discovered that the baby Aziz has a severe heart disorder. While they were in Turkey, he was not thriving, he was not growing, and they found he had a heart disorder. And he needed to get to a place like England to get to see a doctor and have surgery for his heart. But in the meantime, they were giving him some medications, probably to curtail some of the problems, but he wasn't doing well. So, okay, so let's go back. Salim gets captured by the authorities, and he's deported back to Turkey. So he has to figure out now how to survive. Luckily, they have friends in Turkey, people, some strangers who were very nice to him. He gets there, and somehow they help him to dial his mother by phone in Greece. They practically locate a hotel where they've been putting up in Greece, again, on the kindness of other people, very nice people who helped him along the way, and they're able to talk to the mother. So at least the mother knows, my son is safe. This is what happened. He got captured and deported. And he says to her, you go ahead. My little brother needs to see a doctor for his heart. You go ahead. I'll see you guys in England. Okay, so there's some passport along the way that they managed to get from some people, and they were going to send his so he would have it and try to use it to make his way to England. The thing gets posted or gets mailed, and he never receives it. So he is totally helpless. He has nothing, barely has anything to live on. He has to find his way from Turkey all the way back to England to find his family. He has very little money. He has no shelter in many cases. He's living in refugee camps and meeting lots of fellow Afghans who are also trying to do the same, getting in getting in a lot of danger or potential danger, seeing other people die around him who are trying to make it and get in the wrong situation. And mind you, Salim cannot be much more than 15 or 16 or so when all this is happening. I get the sense it happens in the course of a year, maybe a little over. And he's not an adult, because at some point he said he was 15. I think he was being honest about his age. So I think he probably made all this, traveled, all these travels between 15 and 16 or thereabouts. So, well, he gets from place to place. He makes it all the way to France. And so he has to cross the tube to get into England. You know, at the end of it, you get the sense his mother in England, now she makes it to England, right? She and Samira, her daughter, and Aziz, they make it over. She reunites with Hajiba, her half-sister, who welcomes them lovingly. Her husband is a different issue, but she is loving towards them. She's helping them settle in. They're filing papers for asylum. And baby Aziz gets his surgery done, a lot of happy things. Samira starts speaking again, little by little. But you can imagine, as a mother, you have a young son out there, your mind cannot be at rest. You can only be as happy as your least happy child, somebody told me once. So she's waiting. And towards the end, she says something to the effect, I know my son is coming. I know he's on the way. I know he's close. And we find out that Salim manages to cross into England. And that's where it ends. She doesn't write where they meet. I'm guessing they meet. I'm praying for this young man throughout the book. I'm like praying that he sees his mother. But she doesn't want to give me that joy, the author Hashima, Nadia Hashimi, sorry. She didn't give me that joy of reading about the reunion. She just kind of stops there, that I'm almost there, Mom. I'm almost there, Mother. And the mother, on the other hand, says, I know my son is near. And wow, what a plot. It kept me captivated. I listened to it all through the weekend in between chores and hanging out with my children. I couldn't stop till I was done. I loved it. I love Nadia Hashimi's work. She writes passionately, and she writes from her Afghan background and stories I'm sure she heard growing up and things that happen in real life. And they open our eyes to a different existence, how things can change overnight and how blessed we are. You know, you read these things and you realize how blessed you are. You know, so a very touching story. I loved it very much. I'm looking forward to reading more of her work, and I urge you to look it up. When the Moon is Low by Nadia Hashimi. When the Moon is Low by Nadia Hashimi. If you do read it, let me know what you think. Remember, hit subscribe so that you'll know when I upload new videos. And I am very much looking forward to my next book review with you. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, take care and happy reading.